Hi, everybody. We are back. We are at the IMO, and Yves, it's done. It's over. Is it over, or is it just the beginning?
Oh my goodness, Simon. It's who knows,
Who
right?
knows? So I am here with Yves Remy, dear friend, colleague, and the lead of the Caribbean Shipping Lanes project that she's going to explain us about. But before we go into that, look, we just finished with the Marine Environmental Protection Committee. Something happened here today. Can you explain what happened?
Listen, we just came out of a vote,
Didn't we just?
extraordinarily held vote where the chair's report coming out of this MEPC 83 meeting contained the draft of the amendment to the legal instrument that's going to bring into play and into force for ultimate adoption in October a set of regulations that aspired to, at least when the negotiations started, meet the needs and the targets of this 2023 strategy for decarbonizing the shipping sector, the shipping maritime sector. And so what we had today was some countries wanting to actually put that adoption of the report or approval, sorry, of the report to a vote. And we muscled it through. The Caribbean states, except Suriname, all voted to pass that report. We lost the Pacific. The Pacific countries abstained in the sense that we had been working very closely with them in terms of the positions taken in the negotiations up until last night.
And I think we should say something on that, because I think this what is important moving forward is this idea of coalition building within these spaces, which aren't necessarily a given, right? You and I will ask about what you're doing with the shipping lanes and moving that Caribbean coalition forward. But I think something, okay, we can name them. Saudi Arabia was the country that called the vote on behalf of themselves and 14 or 15 other countries. They said that this is an extraordinary measure, very, very rarely taken at the IMO, as Jan was saying, right? And so before this, understanding and moving ambition ahead, for example, is what the Pacifics, Caribbean countries, certain African countries were moving forward. But all of a sudden, we were presented with a text, and it was a yes or no situation.
It was a yes or no or abstain,
yeah.
right? And in the end, the Caribbean countries, I mean, there are aspects of the text we think could have been more ambitious. We definitely were with the Pacific in terms of keeping the negotiators and the negotiations at the highest level of ambition. Because one thing we do share with the other SIDS in the Pacific, in the African countries, as well as LDCs, is special attention in the strategy for just an equitable transition needs. And we felt that instead of expressing that disappointment in the ultimate text by abstaining, that we would nonetheless agree to pass the draft amendments and live to fight another day. And I'm wearing the characteristic Pacific flower in my hair out of solidarity as SIDS, Caribbean, African, and Pacific countries, but recognizing that we both regions want to keep the negotiators tied to their highest ambition, the strive targets, but at the same time realizing that we may go about it in the future in slightly different ways. So we voted yes. We think our Pacific friends will stay the course with us, but we did as a region make a decision to go ahead and accept the document that was presented to us yesterday.
And let's talk about that, because that is the coalition that the Caribbean Shipping Lanes project that you're lead of has moved forward. What do you do? How have you been able to mobilize? And like, what are the practicalities behind doing something that with how many, 10 or 14 Caribbean countries? How many is it at this point?
So the Caribbean is made up of 14 countries. What we did is about a year ago, with the support of some of the delegations, some very important supporters, we managed to come to these negotiations and help those Caribbean states that were actively engaged. And so these are countries like Jamaica, Belize, Antigua, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica. So quite a few countries have been leading the charge on behalf of the region. And in the last year, what we have sought to do as the Caribbean Shipping Lanes Project is provide the technical assistance to these negotiations, whether that's from the perspective of the numbers, so
Yeah.
understanding how any of the measures that will pass to decarbonize the sector, whether these are economic measures or compliance with standards, how will we actually be impacted by in the region? Our food security is threatened. The cost of transport will go up. We also need to transition the entire region so that the fuels that these boats and these ships are required to use in order to meet the ambitious targets are actually taken on board. And that's going to require significant investment. So we've also been doing work on the ground, Simon, to get national consultations started and legal. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I understood the value of having legal expertise to translate what we're doing into legal demands in the negotiations. And for that, I can say we have really begun to build out the expertise of the region. We have sought as far as possible to use the expertise from the region combined with our friends at UCL as well as across the Pacific and in other spheres where we needed to rely and exchange information. So what the CSL is really about is getting the technical expertise to the delegates who then represent the region's interest in the negotiations.
And on that note, you notice that the chair today at the end of the MEPC, he made this gesture that the glass is half full. We started half empty. I would say the glass is still empty, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We came in with this, the glass is empty because we haven't done anything yet. So how do we move this forward?
You know, Simon, I think we all need to go home and sleep. I think we've been on the go in these negotiations, the lead up for the last 2 weeks, non-stop going until 12 o'clock at night. So I think the first thing I'd like with my team to do is go back and interpret what results we got. So we know we got some things into the text, but ultimately it's going to come down to interpreting and understanding the impact of the numbers. We didn't get the numbers we wanted. We didn't get the high ambition we needed. We didn't get the sorts of revenues we think our region needs to translate into actual movement towards decarbonization and to cushion the impact of the transport costs that will inevitably rise, the food security concerns. But we have some numbers to work with. So we will interpret the numbers, figure out how we get the processes to be improved so that we can be more inclusively and transparently dealt with in some of these fora. And then we will obviously we serve member states, work with member states to figure out what they want. And then, as we often do, technically support them on the ground with our analysis, our convening power, our access to the stakeholders, and working with partners like UCL and communications like yours to get the message out. So what you're doing here is super important in bringing the technicalities of what's going on to the masses, so
to understand,
understand what's happening here.
Breaking down the complex issues that are happening here, I think that is really moving forward. Because I think at the end of the day, what we can take away is we have targets here: 2030, 2040, 2050. 2030 is looking difficult. But
To meet
we
these
are
targets.
exactly, but we have a net zero target to reach by 2050. That's not going away. Moving away from fossil fuels, that's not going away.
You're right.
But we need to develop those other fuels better, bigger, and to use equitably around the world. And I think
Equitably is the word.
isn't that the word?
It's the word, and we keep fighting, Simon. I mean, as I said, our delegates fought a very strong fight. We need to give them some more fuel. We need to regroup. But we think that the fight has started. We will be locking arms with the international community, with our brothers and sisters in the room, and we will continue to fight for small island developing states.
And on that note, let's lock arms. Let's lock arms right now, and we'll fight that good fight, because it may be not exactly what we wanted, but it's just the beginning. We're just getting started. So on that note,
thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Jen. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.